Morning, another exciting day on the job. We're coming up on the holidays here, so I probably won't be posting a lot of videos here for the foreseeable future, due to family obligations. But here in Houston, it's actually cold by our standards, and it's supposed to get Arctic here in a couple days, which is, again, weird for us. Driving along today, more random garbage floats into my head, and I flew a helicopter, as mentioned many times before, but I flew out in the Gulf of Mexico in the oil and gas industry. I did that for about 14 years. And the Gulf of Mexico is its own society, its own culture that you have to learn. And I actually wrote a training manual for new pilots. And one of the sections was called Gulf Math, which are numbers that only appear out there. And one of them was time related. Now, when you're jumping around from platform to platform and you're running out of fly day because you have legal limits of what you can do and or the weather's rolling in, somebody would say, oh, I need 5 more minutes. Well, 5 more minutes in the Gulf of Mexico is 15 minutes. And 15 minutes is an hour, and 1 hour is half a day. It was consistent no matter where you are, who you work for. And I've known my whole life that, women lie about their weight. You don't ask them, but at times you do. But they all lie about their weight. Well, it turns out dudes lie about their weight too. Because everything in a small aircraft is based on weight. And not only how much weight do we have, but where do you put it for weight and balance. And you fill out these documents, and across the board, the numbers were garbage. Anything up to about 200 pounds was accurate. And once you got beyond that, it was all fantasy. And these guys, take a guy that was 275, 280, and they would always say 240. Everything was 240. A guy in the mid 300s would be 290. And a guy over 400 pounds up to the moon was 345. And they all wrote the same numbers, and and they walk up and they go, here's your paper, 240, and you go, piece of paper they hand you, and I go, yeah, I don't mean how much did you weigh in high school, or what your goal weight was. What do you weigh now? Oh, and they would do that. And again, trying to move as much as possible. Their bag weights, they'd say, oh, bag weight 5 pounds, and I would have to go, bag weight including contents, not just the bag. You need it all counts. They don't levitate. And they would, crew change day coming in, you've been out there a couple of weeks, it's time to come in, and people would lose, on paper, 30 or 40 pounds overnight. They would just, oh yeah, I'm down, oh, shut up. We dealt with that. And with women, and there are not a lot of women out in the Gulf, it's a hard work environment, it's hostile. And there weren't that many women out there, but all women wrote every woman was 150. It's 275 on the hoof, but 150. And we had a new pilot, this one company I was working for, brand new, his name was Ashley, he's about this big, and he was about 12 or 13 years old. At least what he looked like. And the new guy got out there, and one of his first days on the job, he flew a Jet Ranger, which is an older aircraft designed back in the 60s when everybody was this big. And he's going to pick a load up, and the guys see that it's a rookie, doesn't know what he's doing, so they fill out their paperwork, which it's a carbon copy. And they hand it to him, and he's like, okay, our numbers are good. And he's on a platform up on this deck, and I'll save you the aerodynamics, but when you're on the deck, you have a certain amount of power, and when you stick your nose over the side, it's a whole different can of worms. And this kid goes up off the deck, and they go in the water and destroys the aircraft. I saw pictures of everybody bobbling in the water. Aircraft had the pontoons blown. The aircraft was destroyed upside down. And I heard later that the NTSB was in the area for some reason and landed, and they were going to do an investigation. And that second piece of paper from the sign-in sheet, one went down with the bird. There was one remaining on the deck, and nobody got hurt, and they pulled everybody out. And the NTSB guy, looked at the document and looked at the crowd and looked at the document, and I will modify the words, but which one of you obese fornicators thinks they only weigh 175 pounds? Because they were all huge, and they just faked the numbers. And so that company ended up buying a helicopter for us. And it wasn't our fault, because that's a legal document. Well, my last flying job was up at the Grand Canyon, and which means I flew 12-minute loops through the canyon, and every 12 minutes I had new passengers, so I had to say the same trivia and the same jokes with the same enthusiasm every 12 minutes, and yeah, that gets monotonous. Most of our passengers were from China, which are this big. Literally, 2/3 of them were from China. I don't know what that was all about. But we have people from all around the world, including countries you probably never thought of, like Andorra and Luxembourg and the Isle of Man, just really obscure places. We had a map with pins on it for that. And I'm out in the big open area where people are buying tickets, and there were these three girls out there, and they were big and loud, and they were having fun, and I kind of thought that was great. It was a little Spanish, it was a Spanish girl, a black girl, and a white girl, and they were together. They were very large, and they were very loud, and they were very fun, and you could tell they're having a really good time. And they went through the ticket line, and they appeared at our window, and again, weight and balance, I got to know what we're dealing with. We have this just 2 by 2 foot scale out in front of our counter, and the digital readouts inside. And our girl working there says, "Hey, can you jump on the scale?" "Oh, I know what I weigh. I'm 192." And she goes, "Yeah." And the other girl goes, "Oh, I'm like 187." And the other girl goes, "Oh, and I'm 198." Or in I think it was actually it might have been my wife. Come to think of it, and she said, "Well, I need you to stand on the scale. It's a legal thing. We need to know legally the weights." So they hummed and hawed and got on the scale. Yeah, I think the little one was 306. The other one the big one was like 321 or something like that. And they saw the digital readout and they were mad. What? Not my fault. But they got mad because now I think what happened was they had to confront reality. It was in their face. They couldn't just live in this fantasy of the number they made up that they enjoyed. And they were truly angry. They didn't have a good flight. I mean, they got to see this beautiful Grand Canyon. They didn't have a good flight. They were mad because they had to confront that. And I guess if you tell yourself some enough times, you can start to believe it, I guess. And the problem is when they said those numbers, I knew they were completely full of garbage because as a pilot, I don't do this anymore, but as a pilot, you get to where you can look at somebody and you can get their weight within 5 to 8 pounds just by glancing at them. And I did that, and I glanced down and I went, "Oop, 300 change." And when they walked up, and wow, they were mad. Anyway, that was my random thought, was Gulf math. That came into my head today, and I just felt like talking about it. I hope you enjoy these videos. I'm not really sure why I shoot these other than I like to run my mouth, and maybe some people get some entertainment off of it. But I'm going to keep on doing this again. It may slow down here because the holidays are coming up, but I'll keep doing this. Take care. Bye.